I would get up and I would sort of go after her, looking for her, and I would find her at the pestle and mortar grinding these spices. And the third thing was this beautiful sari my mother used to wear. It was a pink Banarsi sari that she used to wear. So what I'm saying is that I was surprised at what I thought of also, and so I thought this was a fantastic exercise to do. The other exercise we were made to do is to divide your life into decades. And I see a lot of young people, so you may not have many decades to write about, but whatever it is, even if you're in your 20s, 30s, you can divide it into decades and then write about the 3 or 5 most important things that have happened in terms of things that you remember or things that you felt strongly about or things that moved you, and then write about them. So I found a lot of ideas coming from here. And if you look around you, I mean really all the stories are already there in the world, but it's what moves you deeply, what you think about. So these are some of the exercises to go through. Some of the books that I've read recently that I found very useful, I've given a list, and The Ode Less Traveled is the one about rhythm and meter that I was talking about by Stephen Fry. So the other books, writing picture books, is fantastic because it is specifically for picture books for children in the 3 to 8 age group, and even the ones by Nancy Lamb, Joan Aiken, Elaine Mary, all are extremely good. The other thing I would really recommend, and it has really helped me and improved my writing, is joining writing groups. So there is a society in Hong Kong. It's actually based out of LA, but they have chapters in all the major cities in the world, Hong Kong being one of them. It's called the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI or SCBWI, you can Google it. And they do fabulous things. Other than inviting authors to talk, so you get to know more about their process, what they do is they have these critique groups running all around town. And what these groups do is they meet once a month, and we all submit our work, and we critique each other's work. So we tell each other what is working or what we like in the piece and what we don't like. And I think sometimes as authors, because we are so involved in the writing and it's so solitary, we really, really find it very hard, or at least I find it hard to distance myself and look at it as an observer. I become very attached to every line I've written, and when I'm editing, I'm like, wow, this sounds good, but in reality, they're not sounding good. But it's just that I'm not able to tell. But someone else, when they look at it, and by someone else, I mean another person who is in the business of writing, they'll be able to tell what's working, what's not. So this is extremely important. And it's great feedback, and it's a great community. Writers are a very supportive and a very fun community to be with, very creative and very encouraging, especially in Hong Kong. The other group is, and this is for the women, it's called Women in Publishing, or WIPS. That's a very good society to join as well, because they have a list of editors, list of illustrators, list of authors, and I think sometimes it's just nice to go out and have a meal and have a drink with fellow authors and to talk about what they're thinking and what they're writing about. So it's an extremely loving community. So, this is what I had, and really I wanted to leave you with this message that anyone can learn how to write. It's not a rocket science, it's not brain science. A lot of it is common sense, and a lot of it can be learned and picked up. But I would say write from your heart, write from what comes from within. Write intuitively, and then you can read all these books and see what's working, what's not working, and take the help of support groups. But really write about what you feel about. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to take on any questions that you may have. Yes.
Thank you very much.
No, I don't need to be nice.
Thank you very much for most interesting and enlightening presentation. One question I have is if you can comment on the illustration part of your book. What was the process like finding the illustrator, and how do you work with the illustrator? Because that's such an important part of your book.
Yes, illustrations are really important. can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I found one through a friend, but there are a lot of forums now that you can actually find illustrators on the internet. It's not hard, and there are a lot of students who are with, who are studying in universities, who are majoring in art. So getting one is not a problem, and there are a lot of illustrators who are listed in these societies as well. And if you spread the word around through friends or the community, you will get a lot of portfolios to look at and to select. The harder part is sort of negotiating your contract with them. So if you are going through a traditional publisher, then they take care of everything. So as a children's book author, you submit your story, they like your story, they have a panel of illustrators who they use. And so they will then pick an illustrator from their panel and try and match the illustration style with your writing. So you don't have to look at the illustrator at all, or find one if you're going the traditional route. The issue that comes is when you're publishing yourself like me. Then yes, so then finding is not so much of an issue because there's a lot of talent. The issue really is at what terms are you going to, offer. So there is, you'll get a sense of what the market is offering. But what is important is that as a self-publisher, what I have preferred to do is pay an outright sum and buy the rights to the illustration so that I can use them in books, I can use them in ebooks, I can use them in books that I translated to different languages, the same books. A lot of people use a model where they pay a smaller upfront, but then they have a royalty for the illustrator in terms of number of books sold. So the illustrator gets a percentage of number of books sold, which I find as a self-publisher can get complicated. So I prefer to pay a lump sum and own the rights. And that's something that I find that works for me. And what I would recommend is have a contract drawn up from the first day. Hire good lawyers who are going to do that for you. It doesn't cost too much. Have a contract which mentions how many books are you planning to do with the illustrator. If it's one, maybe it's for one, or if you are trying out with three, maybe it's for three. Have it very clearly the number of illustrations that you're looking at, how much you would pay per illustration, so the total cost, what time frame you expect the illustrations to be delivered to you. So these are some of the key points to be put in, and that the illustrator can't be working on a similar story or the style they've created for you. They can't be doing that for another author at the same time. And the lawyers will advise you as well, but these are some of the things to keep in mind. So I would strongly recommend having it under a contract. The illustrator may be your friend, you may know them well, you may really like them, but business is business. It's absolutely different when it comes to working with somebody, so it's good to have everything under a contract. Yes.
Perhaps in the same vein, how much interaction do you have with the illustrator? You've written your book and you've had a contract for a certain number of illustrations. How much guidance do you give them? How much freedom do they have in deciding?
That's a good question. So I give mine quite a bit of freedom because I think, people don't like to be sort of boxed down with too many specifics or we kind of micromanage them. But I think it's very good to give a broad outline. So what happens is we go illustration by illustration. So, we'll talk every 3-4 days or every week. So we'll discuss, let's say, the first illustration, if it's about, it could be something as simple as two boys sitting on a swing with their mother. So I'll say, this is the broad outline. And what she does, and I think most illustrators would do this, she would send me a line drawing first before coloring it. And then I would either okay that, or many times I've gone back and said, oh, but can we have the dog also under the swing? Or can we have something behind? Or can it be in a garden instead? It's not looking nice with a squirrel, So they take feedback, and the way to do it is ask them for a rough line drawing and then approve that with the changes, and then they can render it. But I think over a period of time, you build a relationship with the illustrator and you get a sense of what they do and they get a sense of what you're looking for. So it might take some time to get that understanding, but once it's there, it works quite well. And most people are quite flexible to change things. Yes.
Where do you see your series in the next 5-10 years? Do you have any other exciting projects?
Oh, that's a good question. The good thing about Indian mythology is that it's endless. So I'm lucky in that sense, and I'm also lucky that I have the stories there. My challenge is how to put it in a simple way. But I think I'm inspired by writing for my kids. So one of the thoughts I had is really to follow their ages. So when I started this, my older one was 3, my younger one was 1, and now they're 8 and 6. So I'm looking at maybe doing something for older kids now, 7 to 10 years old. And an interesting thing, which brings me to another interesting point. So one of the publishers that I sent my books to in India was Penguin. And when I had 3 books and I was finding it very hard to do the distribution. And they said, no, 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 this is not going to work, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And of course I felt bad, but I said, never mind. So they just turned me down. About 8 months back, the same lady wrote to me saying, oh, we'd like to buy your CDs out. And I said, this is really interesting. And I said, but you guys didn't like it. And she said, no, no, but now I see the books in all the bookstores. So I said, And then I thought to myself, very often publishers don't know what's going to work. And my experience has been is they find it very, they want to put money if they know it's going to work. But how do you do that? You have to support somebody beforehand. So I had to very politely say, but what is the value addition that you can do? Because I've really struggled with my distribution and the marketing, and it was very hard for me over the last 5 years, and I needed you 5 years or 4 years back when I approached you, but not now. So then she said, then can you write another series for us and make it sound exactly like this? Okay. So the point I'm trying to say is that go with what you think is right. And I find this very bizarre about our industry, about the publishing industry, is that the idea is the author's idea. The author's worked on it. And after having self-published, I have some idea of the finances. So this is how it works. As a self-publisher, I pay about 50% to the distributor. And I have 50% for myself. Now, in that 50% that I get to keep, I have to pay the illustrator, I have to pay my printing cost, I have to pay my marketing cost. Let's say I'm doing some Facebook marketing or I'm putting an ad somewhere. So these are my costs, and whatever I have left is after this. If I go to a publisher tells me, I will give you, and this is the standard in the industry, I'll give you 7.5% of the price of the book. Means if I'm selling the book at 100, I get 7.5 Hong Kong dollars per book, or US dollars, whichever market you're in. And I think to myself, this is so less. So the publisher is keeping $93 for what? Out of the $93, they are paying the distributors $50. So they still have $43 left. Why can't they share more of that with the author? And sure, they have their costs, right? They have their costs of salary, they have these big offices, they have editing teams, they have design teams, they have illustrators, but even so, those teams are being used for a pool of books. It's not just for your book. So my question to publishers has always been that it's way too less to pay an author. And most authors, and I would have done the same probably if a publisher bought my book early on. I'm glad they turned it down actually, because I would have sold out, because you're just so grateful at being published. You're thinking, oh wow, this publisher, such a big publisher, has signed me up. Oh fine, I should just take 7.5%. But once they turned me down, I really sat and thought, what does the publisher do? They do 3 things. They print the books for you, they distribute the books for you, and they market the books for you. Now, can I print the books myself? Yes, of course I can. It may take me time to reach a high number of books that I'm printing, but doesn't matter. And printing is not such a big cost. Even if you're getting 1,000 or 2,000 copies printed, let's say for your first book you're doing a smaller run, it's not such a big cost, and you can write it off. Second is distribution. Distribution, it doesn't involve a cost element, but it involves finding a distributor. And if you have a good book, any distributor will take you, because guess what? For every book that you're selling, they are making half the money. So if you sell your book for 100, they're keeping 50. So your interest and their interests are aligned. And the third thing is marketing. And any publishing company today will tell you they expect the author to do a lot of the marketing. So I said, hang on, if I can do all these 3 things myself, I really don't need a publisher. So I think this is something I find strange about our industry, and I hope it changes. I think even first-time authors should get more respect. And children authors are right at the bottom. It's like, oh, you're writing for children. And I feel, why is that? Children are the most engaging, lively, intuitive, interactive audience that you can get. And it's hard to write for children. It's harder, if not as hard, than writing a novel. So I really hope that this changes and people respect children's authors more. And I think maybe with authors like J.K. Rowling that have done such a great job of not only having this vivid imagination, but getting people to read again. I think that was the biggest benefit of the Harry Potter series, is that children, went back to picking up books again. So yes, that is my view.
How long does it take for you to write one book?
Oh, that's interesting. So it takes about 6 months from the time that I start writing it till the final book comes out. So I kind of have a rough draft. And once I have a draft ready, I'm quite clear about the illustrations that I want. and then my illustrator and me talk, and she takes about 3-4 days to make one illustration. And so I write it, she makes illustration that sort of happens simultaneously while she's doing the illustrations. I'm doing revisions to the draft. And then we send it to the printer, it gets printed in China, and by the time it's finally in the bookstore, so it takes around 6 months from the time that we start writing and doing the illustrations till the time that it's in the bookstores. And I think in a way, I mean, even if it takes longer, it's fine. My experience and my advice would be is if you're doing something, produce a work of good quality. So even if it's one book a year, or even if it's one book in 2 years, it's fine. But it should be the best that you can do. In terms of story, illustrations, hire the best editors, or even if you're going to the publisher, it should really be a best effort. And good efforts take a long time. In fact, that reminds me about something interesting. I don't know if you've heard of this author, Zadie Smith. So Zadie Smith had written an article about writing, her tips on writing. And she says that the best advice she got was that once you write a novel or a story, put it in the drawer for a year and come back to it after a year because you're so attached to it. Now a year may be a very long time, for some of us who want to go ahead with publishing our books. But even a month, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and she says that she finds at most literary festivals, this is a hilarious scene when authors are reading. She says the authors are all backstage with all their books because they have to go and read and interact with the audience. And she says all of them are sitting with their books open and they are editing it because they are saying this is so pathetic what we've written and we put it in a hurry, and they're all literally marking words and changing words and they read the edited versions. And she says we are all, so much in for publishing and going for launches, but she says I really wish I had taken more time over writing. So yeah, so if you want to sit on the story, it's a great idea and go back to it.
What would you say is the hardest part of the creative writing process? Is it coming up with the idea or something? Is it more the practical stuff?
So if you're considering self-publishing, I think just grappling with the various parts, the printing, the distribution, the marketing, the logistics, I found that hard. It's easier now that things are in place, but it still involves time. So that is hard. But if you're going the traditional route, then I think it depends. I think some people might find it hard to come up with an idea. That could be where that comes from, because there's a lot of help that you can get in terms of structuring the story by way of joining groups or just by way of reading books. One of the books I've recommended, I think it literally recommends how to structure the beginning, the middle, and the ending of your story. So you'll get lots of technical help on that. So I think if you're going the traditional route, it is probably getting an idea and finding a publisher. That is very hard. From what I've been told, that publishers reject books all the time, and I think to give them credit, there is a value in what they're doing for sure. They have good design teams, they have good editing teams, but they don't know what works. J.K. Rowling was rejected some 20 or 30 times before she was taken up. And I was reading an interesting story. The publisher who finally published her wasn't sure, so she had submitted 2 chapters of the first book, and he had a 10-year-old daughter, and he gave it to her to read, and she came back asking for the 3rd chapter in the middle of the night. So then he said, oh, this is interesting. So, publishers may know at times what works, but a lot of times they don't know what really works. So I think finding a publisher and getting the idea are probably the 2 toughest things if you're going by the traditional route.
Do you have any advice then about finding a publisher?
There's lots of help now. So there's a listing of publishers in different markets. So, SCBWI, the group I said, I think, if you're really looking at publishing the traditional way, you must join that, even for self-publishers actually. They have an entire listing, so they recommend these books. So for example, in UK, there's a whole book about publishers for children, and they list it topic-wise. So some are more interested in historical, some might be more in fairy tales. So you get a very detailed breakdown because certain publishers specialize in certain type of writing. And then there's one for Asia, which they've compiled as well. And then there are literary agents, a list of which is also given. So agents help you find a publisher. Of course, they take a cut from what you're doing, but they could be very helpful because a publisher receives hundreds and thousands of manuscripts every day. So for them to go through that, it's very, very difficult. So they go through agents as well because, they know the agents over a period of time. They trust the agent's judgments. The agent will only take on your story if they think it's good or if it has potential. And so there's a listing of agents, and all these books will also tell you how to prepare your summary letter. And a lot of the people, in fact, most of the people in these groups are either publishing themselves or they are approaching publishers. So they're all writing their pitches and their letters, and the books also and the people will guide you very well in terms of what you should present, what you should write in a letter, how long should it be. So it's very useful, so I would highly recommend that. Lots and lots of resources now to contact publishers and literary agents. And the other thing is, agents and publishers, I think, need us as much as we need them. It's not a one-way thing. Where are they going to get their next big book from? Where are they going to get the next J.K. Rowling from? From all of us who are writing and who want to get published. So they need us as much as we need them. And my only other advice would be, if you're going to a traditional publisher, don't sell out at anything. Try and negotiate. Very often we have this thing like I said, oh my God, I've got a publisher. Oh, I'm so grateful, but what? The idea is yours. The story is yours. So, one doesn't need to be arrogant about it, but one doesn't need to be subservient either. So don't short sell yourself. Never short sell yourself. Always believe in your idea and believe in your story. Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the e-book business, part of the books?
Yes, ebooks, I find in the children market, I really don't know how popular ebooks are because I got them done long back, but I haven't even tracked my sales or looked at it. What I feel for a children's market, parents and grandparents, whoever's reading, they like to buy the book. Like I as a parent, I want to read with a physical book because I feel my children are going to get computers from their schools. They're going to be doing their homework on computers and reading on computers. It's going to be their whole life very soon. So and maybe it's because I grew up with physical books, I want to give them that joy. So when I snuggle up with my kids at bedtime, I want to have that physical book to touch and feel. So I think in the picture book market, probably ebooks might not be...
How about fiction for slightly older?
For older, yes. So when you actually publish, if you go through a publisher, even self-publishing, you can have both. So you can have an ebook version and you can have a physical version. But for illustrated books, I would say it's not that necessary.
I can just add to that actually. I happen to know the head of Penguin Asia. She told me that children's books, ebooks haven't taken off at all.
Yeah.
Both have exploded in the adult market. Children's books hasn't worked at all for them. Both the reasons you said.
So I have my cards here. I'm happy to give it out, and if you guys have any questions at any later point, please feel free to write to me. I've got some of my books here, just in case you wanted to take a look at what I've written about and the illustration. And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the reality and struggle in this industry. Also, this is a gift for you. Yeah, it's sponsored by ASOP. And thank you very much for ADC for sponsoring this wonderful workshop. And we hope to